Hi, this is Gurasi Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. So, let me be very honest today. When I was in India, I did not know anything about scholarships. Or I should say, I knew very few people in my vicinity who got these scholarships within the country. Because I come from a business family and focus on studies was to just complete it only for the sake of portfolio and eventually get into the family business. Which ironically, I never ever even tried and moved abroad to build something on my own. Which I'm glad I did because I'm definitely a better version of myself from 4 years ago. I also met few people here who have come from all around the world and got scholarships I have never ever heard about before. And my guest today is one such person. She was born in Australia, completed high school in Delhi, India, and then the scholarships gave her the opportunity to live in France, Italy, Spain, and in the beginning of 2022, she moved to Canada for her research at University of Montreal. Let's learn more from her about the scholarships and the experience of living in various countries. Please welcome Priyanshu Bharadwaj, or like everybody calls her, Pri.
Hi, thank you so much for welcoming Ingurasis. It has been a pleasure to know you, and I'm so excited to be a part of this. Thank you again.
Likewise, I'm glad we are finally able to do this after a lot of technical difficulties and changing of dates and everything. But yeah, so here we are today.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Pri, let's talk chronologically because you have lived different places and visited a lot of countries just in terms of your scholarships. So tell me, like, you moved to India from Australia when you were an infant, and you spent
Mhm.
your formative years there, completed your high school there. Tell us more about your time you spent in India. And I also remember you telling me that growing up, your parents were very strict about studies. Tell us all about that.
Okay. So I come from a very conservative family in India. My parents were always strict about education. They always wanted me and my sister to be the top. So I remember growing up, we would have these awkward phases after parents teacher meeting where my dad would be like really mad at me because I have like 70 on 100 in math or like 80 on 100 in math and not like the full score because my dad was very particular about studies. And that was something that I carried within myself. As a kid, I was really into dancing, into painting, into music and everything. But slowly with time, because I would see that my parents get like really happy when I have that academic validation, I turned
Hmm.
towards it and I really got interested in studying. I was always a very scientific person. My parents always encouraged that. So that's a part of my childhood, honestly. Science. I would talk to my dad, my grandfather about science, about how I could be a scientist. I was always a very curious kid. As a kid, I would
Hmm.
always ask questions, and you know how the culture is in India when a kid is like asking a lot of questions. Parents are like, okay, don't say this much, don't talk in front of adults, don't question them this
Yeah.
much. But I was always like questioning. I was like, why is it happening? Even like with religion, like my parents were Hindu, so they would always like follow a certain religious thing, and I would be like, but why are we doing this? Like, why would
Hmm.
you want to do that? So I always had that inside of me. So my parents obviously wanted me to be an engineer or a doctor, but I was always into research. Funny
Yeah.
enough, I also like got admission in a medical college in India,
Hmm.
and my parents were so happy. But then I used that excuse that okay, it's not a government college, so it will mean that you'll have to pay a lot. So give me a year. I'll just
Hmm.
join a course that I really like, and then I might switch into medicine. So I started studying pharmacy. I was a
Okay.
pharmacist, and after that, yeah, and after that, I was really into it. My parents saw that I was really good at it, I was getting good scores, so they decided to let me continue it. That was my childhood.
Okay, pretty interesting. So you are saying that you did that bachelor's in pharmacy because your father wanted you
Yes.
to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And he mostly wanted me to do something that's related to medicine. So if
Okay.
a doctor or a pharmacist, anything that's related to healthcare professional, and
Yeah.
even when I was done with my degree, he was like, let's get a pharmacist license. Let's just start that process. But I was always into research, and I always wanted to go outside of India just for research.
So talking about, going out of India, let's just
Mhm.
pivot towards the numerous scholarships you have done. And I'm sure there are many like me who had like no who had like completed their high schools or bachelors and have no idea about this. So please educate us. Let's just start with the Eiffel scholarship. Tell us about that.
So when I was in India in my seventh semester, because the degree of pharmacy is of 8 semesters, right? So in
Mhm.
my seventh semester, I really started preparing for US. My main objective was to go to US. So I was giving
Just like all of
GRE.
us.
Yeah, just like everyone.
Yeah.
So I was giving GRE and everything, but then I realized that the the biggest problem that I have here is the money.
Hmm.
And I told this to my dad that, okay, I want to go there and I would do it on my own terms, but I need to take a loan. And
Mhm.
my dad said no. He was like, I'll let you go if you have a scholarship. So you
Hmm.
can do whatever you want if you have a scholarship. And nobody in my family has gone outside of India for studies. So
Mhm.
there was no one to guide me. I would like go to some of my seniors in college in India, and they would be like, you know what, you should get like published, and then you might be able to find a scholarship to go outside. I tried my level best to get published, and
Mhm.
it was not happening. But finally, in my fourth year, I decided to join a research team, and that research team was like working on some natural drugs. And I had the chance to go to a conference through that, and I really enjoyed it. So
Mhm.
based on that, I started looking on for places where I could get scholarship, and I came across this Eiffel scholarship, which was for France, and I was like, okay, I mean, everybody has that Paris attraction, in India. So I was like, okay, maybe I should just try my luck with that. So the application was really simple. I only had to upload a few recommendation letters, write a motivation letter, and upload my CV. So all of that were in place, right? Because I had a good CV, I have worked in research and everything, and I applied, not thinking that anything would happen. During that time, I also finished my degree, and I was like thinking of what I should do next, because I also had uh, letters, like admission letter from other places in UK, in US. So my parents were like, okay, but you can't go there because of the money issue. And then suddenly, I remember in May, I was like, I have really given up of everything. I was like, nothing is happening, nothing
What
is
year
working
was
out.
that?
It was 2019,
Okay.
2019 in May. And I remember I got this email saying that my application has completed the first stage, and I need to have an interview to decide the university and if I want to do it. I was like, really? So I just gave the interview, and I waited for a month after that.
Mhm.
After that month, I got the admission letter and I got the scholarship letter. So I got the scholarship letter, and Eiffel Tower scholarship actually covers your stay. It covers
Mhm.
the educational fee.
Okay.
Although the money that they give is like not a lot, but it was something, and I fulfill the condition that my father put in front of me, right? Getting a scholarship
Yeah.
to go outside. So that's how I ended in France. I moved to France in September 2019 for a course that's called Innovative Drugs. It was a 1 year master degree
Mhm.
in nanomedicine and medical imaging. And the only reason my parents let me do again was because it was a 1 year degree.
Mm.
And the condition of the degree was that I have to study for a semester in the university, and then I have to work like
Okay.
for a semester somewhere. So they were like, okay, now you'll have like a European work experience, so you can come back and get a good job.
Hmm.
So that's how I was actually allowed to go, and I got that scholarship.
Okay, but before we talk more about your experience in France, I want to go back to the interview phase and when you were
Yeah.
applying for it. Tell us about a little bit about the eligibility criteria, or do
Okay.
you need any sort of IELTS, or what's the age limit, or usually what the duration is. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I did need IELTS for that. So they need English proficiency, although for Indians, because all of our education is in English, we
Yeah.
don't really need that. But I still gave the exam, so I had
Okay.
the score. You need to complete undergraduate, or you're about to complete undergraduate from an institute in India.
Mhm.
There's like no specific transcript requirement. Like there is no minimum GPA that you should have.
Okay.
But ideally, if you have a GPA more than 8.5 out of 10, it helps in getting the scholarship. They need a CV, and you should have like the experiences that is relevant to the course that you're applying to. Because I applied to a research based course and I had some research experience, it helped.
Hmm.
Other than that, you need to have a passport for applying. And
Yeah.
you need a few recommendation letters. In my case, it was two
Mhm.
recommendation letters that I had to ask my recommenders to directly upload, and I had to send all my transcript, my grades, and I had to even convert it to the French grade. But for me, my university did that. So it
Okay.
depends on the university. Yeah. So they
What do you mean by
converted it to.
French grade?
So French grade is very different from India. It's out of 20, and it's
Okay.
very difficult. Like if you get more than 14 in France, it means that you're somewhat brilliant. And in
Okay.
yeah, and the Indian grade 8 is
Hmm.
equivalent to 14 in France.
Hmm.
Like CGPA 8 or
Interesting.
80% is equivalent to 14 in France. So yeah, that was the eligibility criteria. Of course, you have to apply through the online portal of Eiffel Scholarship, and before that, you need to also apply to a university. So I applied to University of Bourgogne because of the course. This university is in Dijon, like the Dijon mustard that everybody knows about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I applied to the university first, and then I applied to this scholarship, and luckily I got it. For the interview, I remember that they were very, very specific. I did not have any technical questions from them, but they really wanted to know my motivation, like why am I motivated to do research?
Hmm.
And honestly, I have been a part of so many scholarship committee, and I've seen so many students talk about why they want scholarship, and the answer is like never really related to what they're gonna do. Like for me, because I was gonna do research, like my aim was research. When they asked me what's
Yeah.
your future plan, I was like, I wanna do research, I wanna stay in academia, I wanna continue
Hmm.
doing that. I know that some students do the mistake of saying that okay, they want to go to industry, or they wanna switch and work in a company or start their own
Yeah.
business. And these things don't work. You have to be very smart when you face interviews. Your confidence should show that you should actually know what you're talking about and know what you're doing. So
Hmm.
that's what helped me,
Okay.
honestly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Tell us how long you said it was like a 1 year scholarship program, right?
Yes, it was a one-year scholarship program. Yeah.
And you stayed in France for
Yeah.
the whole year?
Yes, because it was 2019. So, like the first semester, which was from September to December, I did not have like chance to actually travel because first I went to this program, which is only of 1 year, right?
Hmm.
It was really, really packed. And I had so many courses, plus the accent was so different because it was a French university. So everybody spoke French. Although my program was in English, it was so difficult to follow their accent and to
Hmm.
understand everything there. And I had to like deal with that. Plus the pressure was like much more than India. In India, I remember like how did we like give exams? It was like okay, you study say a week before the exams and you're done. In
Yeah.
France, you have exams every week,
Hmm.
and it's something that was really bizarre to me because I would finish one subject and I would have the exams, and that exam would be like my final exam. Like the first exam
Hmm.
that I gave, I wasn't even sure if it's my final exam or something. I just was like, okay, it's an exam, you have to come and give it. So I went and gave the exam, and then I was told that okay, this is your final grade. Like, really? Are you serious? There's no other exam after this? I'm like, no, this is it. And then I had to like every week had to study, I had to make notes, I had to understand everything. So that was my 2019. In 2020, I had to do an internship.
Hmm.
So I did an internship in Montpellier, which is also in France. Unfortunately, I had a very racist incident there.
Hmm.
I was racially attacked. Yeah.
Bro-
Yeah. So it so happened that one evening, it was like my second or third day in Montpellier.
Mhm.
I was walking with an Indian colleague who was an Indian postdoc in my university,
Okay.
right? And he was showing me around just to like show me the town where I can get what, because also it's a French speaking town, right? And back then I did not speak any French. So it was very difficult to navigate things. So he
Mhm.
was there with me just to help me. And suddenly we were approached by this gang of men
Mhm.
who started like they had knives in their hand. And they were like,
Oh
give
man.
us your wallet and everything that you have. It was so bizarre because nobody stopped to help us, and it was right in the middle of street.
Wow.
And that was my second day, and I didn't know anyone in that city, right? So I was so scared. And this Indian guy told me that, oh, this is very common. It has happened with me two to three times. Don't worry. It's
Really?
fine. It's normal. Yeah, he was like, don't keep cash with yourself and don't keep your card in the wallet. Everything will be okay. Like, what are you saying? Like, this is not normal. I was so
Yeah.
scared after that. I lived in Montpellier for 20 days following that. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with this place. I have to move to a new city because I would always live in fear, honestly. And that's when I decided to go back to Dijon because there I had most of my friends and I liked the city. I know that it's very safe. I moved back to Dijon and I stayed there. But then COVID happened.
Hmm.
And because COVID happened, I wasn't able to work a lot in labs. I wasn't able to gain a lot of experience that I wanted to gain. So that was my first year in Europe. Kind of traumatic, honestly.
So just move towards your next scholarship then, which was the Erasmus Mundus, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just about that.
So, okay. So Erasmus Mundus degree is a 2-year program in Europe and it is funded by European Union. So there is Erasmus Mundus Union, which comprises of many European universities, and they fund these master programs. They have almost 100 to 200 master's programs, depending on like so many categories, also on
Hmm.
dancing, anthropology, many courses. And they select students from all over the world. Precisely for every program, they select 10 students, 10 to 12 students, and they give them fully funded scholarship. By
Hmm.
fully funded scholarship, I mean that they even pay for your tickets. They give
Hmm.
you money for travel, they give you money for visa application, and there are no fees. They give you a health insurance that will cover you everywhere in the world, no matter where you go. It's actually amazing, and they would give you monthly stipends. So, when I was doing my internship in Dijon and COVID happened, I thought, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't have much research experience, so I can't do a PhD. I really need
Hmm.
another master's. And I had this one professor from Egypt. She actually told me to apply for Erasmus Mundus program because the scholarship is good and I'll have 2 more years of experience as a
Hmm.
master's student. And I thought, okay, milega to nahi, I'll just try it and apply.
Yeah.
And I remember the deadline was 15 February and I applied on 14 February. So
Wow.
14 February is when I uploaded all my documents. I wrote my motivation letter, everything in a day. And I really don't recommend doing that. Like, please take your time with the motivation letter. I think I was just lucky with that. And I actually forgot about it,
Hmm.
honestly. I applied on 14 February and okay, that's it. Then COVID happened, things were changing, we had lockdowns everywhere.
Of
And
course.
suddenly, I remember like after 15 days, I get this email saying that, okay, you have been selected for the first round. Now you have to give another
Hmm.
interview. So I had this interview with a professor from Belgium, and surprisingly, like I researched math. So the program that I studied was called Emotion, which is the European Masters in Translational Cosmetics and Dermatology.
Oh, okay.
And because I was really interested into skin, I applied only for this particular program. Although you can apply for 3 to 4 Erasmus Mundus programs, and depending on
Hmm.
where you get selected, you can select the place where you want to go to.
So at one time you were saying like a candidate can apply to three to
Three
four
to
different Erasmus Mundus
different
scholarships.
different
Okay.
Erasmus Mundus scholarships, right? Because there are
Hmm.
many programs. So you can apply for, say, anthropology if you're interested. You can apply for sociology. You can apply for political science, like different Erasmus programs.
Hmm.
And depending on what scholarship you get and what program you like, you can select in the end.
Hmm.
So I only applied to this program, and in April, I got my acceptance letter from there. So my scholarship was based in 4 countries. It was
Hmm.
starting in Italy, it
Okay.
had Germany, it had Belgium, and Spain.
Hmm.
So yeah, also
Interesting.
yeah, at that time, I also got a PhD offer from the lab where I was working in. So I had to like choose between either I should do a PhD because it's more stable. PhDs in France is of 3 years, and
Hmm.
this master is of 2 years. So by the time if I decide to do this masters, I'll waste like 2 years of my life. And PhD is a big step forward in the career that I want for myself as a researcher.
Hmm.
So I was quite in a fix at that time, but I decided to go for Erasmus Mundus because I felt like it's a prestigious scholarship and it will give me like a time to know myself and to understand what I really like in research. So I
Hmm.
decided to go for it. And honestly, I don't regret it. I think it was the best decision that I took for myself because after you get the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, the Indian government, especially like the Erasmus Mundus Association in India, they
Hmm.
invite you to Delhi for a cocktail party, which
Oh,
is like,
okay.
yeah, which I think is so prestigious. You get to meet so many people from
Mm.
different walks and corners of India who have been selected for the scholarship. And I was the only Indian for my program, which also made it kind of special for me. Yeah.
I am so fascinated about just hearing all this,
Yeah.
I really hope that, someday maybe I would get the opportunity to do one of these. It would be such a nice
Why not?
experience.
Why not? I mean, you still have chance to do it, honestly.
Yeah. So you were saying that when you were in France, you got the offer for the PhD there, and but at the same time you got the opportunity to get into this Erasmus Mundus, but then you decided to choose the Erasmus Mundus one, right? And
Yeah.
you said that that kind of helped you to find yourself, right? What did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Okay. So I really liked research, okay? On like that's like the base of my life. That I love
Hmm.
research, I love science and everything. But while I was in Dijon, I realized that the field that I'm working for is very, very specific. I was working with microscopy and I liked it, but I did not really enjoy it. I wanted to see what else I could do, you know. I wanted to move out of France. I wanted to experience new countries, new culture. Because
Mm.
again, PhD is quite limiting because you have a lot of work. So you don't have like time to go out and travel and meet new people, and I really wanted to experience other cultures. And then I saw about this Erasmus Mundus that, I mean, we had a group and we had people from Colombia, from New Zealand, from Africa, like from now we had one from Nigeria, like so many different people, you know, like from different
Yeah.
countries in Europe. And I thought that if I get this chance to like be with them, I'll actually learn a bit more about different cultures and everything, because my
Mm.
experience in France was good, but it was mostly in France. I did not have time to go out because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I thought of taking that chance, and I do think that it changed me because it made me really accepting. I
Hmm.
learned a lot about different cultures. I also learned a bit of Spanish, I learned a bit of Italian, I learned French in that process. So all of that happened because of Erasmus Mundus. And it also gave me the chance to come to Canada, which I never thought could happen, honestly. So, but that I'll talk about that later, how that happened.
Oh, okay, okay. So before we get into the Canadian journey, tell me that are you like allowed to stay in Europe after you are done with your scholarship?
Yes, you can. Because when you start your Erasmus Mundus, you start from one country. So I started from Italy.
Hmm.
After you finish your master's in Italy, you're eligible to get 2 year of work search permit. So I did not get that because I did not plan to stay in Italy, honestly. But people did get that permit. So
Hmm.
after that, I moved to Spain, and even in Spain, you're eligible to get a year of search visa, like work search
Hmm.
visa. Uh, and then the same in Germany. So
Okay.
you are eligible to stay in Europe after you finish your education from there. The condition remains that you have to actually find something in that period of
Mm,
time, and it's not very long. It's 1 year or 2 year maximum, and you'd have to learn the language because Europe
of
is really
course.
language centric. Yeah. So I've met people who work in L'Oreal Paris, like the biggest cosmetic company in the whole
Mm,
world,
yeah.
situated in Paris, and they don't speak any English. And
Wow.
it's very normal, honestly. It's very normal there. So yes, you can definitely stay there, but you have to be aware of the conditions that come with it.
Okay. Okay. But that's still
Yeah,
good to know that you are at least allowed to stay there after
yeah,
you are
you
done.
are allowed to stay. Yeah,
Okay. So let's just move towards your Canadian journey. But I believe
yeah,
before that, you also got the something called My Tax. I don't know how to
yes,
exactly pronounce it. Tell me
it's
about
my
that. That
text. Yeah,
My Tax
yeah,
scholarship. Yeah. Tell us
yes,
about that.
exactly. So in my Erasmus Mundus scholarship, the emotion, the first year was in Italy, and for second year, I had to choose between Spain and Belgium. And I
Okay.
decided to go to Spain. So
Mhm.
when I was in Spain for our final semester, we had to do an internship, which could be anywhere in the world. Okay, so I
Mm.
started looking for internships everywhere, and that's when I saw this post, like this opening on LinkedIn for a research intern and a PhD in University of Montreal.
Mhm.
So I was pretty intrigued because I never thought of like going to Canada before that. But somewhere, like every Indian, it was kind of like, okay, Canada, US, like the American dream that people have. So
Yeah.
I had that honestly, and I know that the quality of life and people are really nice in Canada. So I should give it
Mhm.
a try. Is what I thought back then. So I applied for the position. It was a LinkedIn easy apply. I still remember. I only had to upload my CV, and I did that.
Mhm.
And 2 days later, I got an email from the person that I applied to, like the lab in charge, and they said that they're interested in seeing my full profile and talking to me.
Mhm.
So I had an interview with them. It was a very normal get to know you interview. And then after that, after a week, they said that they're really interested in my profile and they have selected me for this other round in which they'll give me like some technical questions to answer.
Mhm.
And back then, I had my best friend in Canada. She was studying in Laval.
Mhm.
So she actually helped me in preparing for those questions. And I gave the interview. It went really well. And I got the application, I mean, admission letter from
Mm.
UDEM. Now the question was, okay, but how? Like, what next? Because now I had to tell this whole Erasmus Mundus thing that I'm going to Canada for my final semester. And they actually prefer people to stay in Europe.
Mm.
So it was very good that I was in Spain because my Spanish university had this exchange agreement with University of Montreal, which I found
Okay.
out during that time, which meant that I was eligible to go to Canada for a short-term research
Okay.
for 4 to 6 months. And for that, I need to write a research protocol and a proposal of what I'm doing, and I have to specify like why am I the ideal candidate for this position,
Mhm.
and I did that. And I applied for this another scholarship called MyTech scholarship, which gives you like 6,000 for 4 months of internship in Canada.
Mhm.
And I got that scholarship. It was pretty easy to get because
Mhm.
it's a peer reviewed scholarship.
Tell us some more about that. What do you mean by peer-reviewed scholarship? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so there are two kinds of scholarship. One is a competitive scholarship in which you have like many applicants and limited amount of seats, right?
Okay.
MyTex is a peer reviewed, which means that it's mostly uh, it's mostly judging you based on your research experience. So you write a research proposal.
Mhm.
There are peers who work in the same field who will
Mhm.
read it and then they will decide if this research is actually good for Canada. They'll see
Okay.
if you're bringing a change in Canada or if in some way you're able to like
Bring
change
some
something
value.
here. Will you bring some value, basically,
Yeah.
bring some research value in Canada? So they actually encourage that a lot because research in Canada is always considered to be top notch. And they're
Mhm.
always looking for people who can enhance the value and can bring more to the system.
Mhm.
That's why it's pretty easy to get. It's called peer reviewed.
I'm sure it would not be that easy for people who don't know about it.
I mean, yeah. This MyTex is also for undergrads actually, and the application starts in August, I believe. And
Mhm.
undergrad, it gives a chance for undergrad students in India to come to Canada for research. So I would
Hmm.
actually suggest everyone who is an undergrad to do this, to take this experience, because you would agree with me that coming
Absolutely.
here is
Yeah.
definitely a big thing and it actually changes you as a person. They should definitely try that.
Yeah. So, tell me about the other one that I saw, which was the UDEM Centrum Scholarship. Is that related to
Yes.
that?
So when I came here, I had like no intention of continuing my studies here. I actually wanted to go back to Europe, but I was offered a PhD position, and the PhDs here get a limited salary. They get a salary, but it's not as much as you would expect them to.
Okay.
So I told this to my supervisor, and she was like, "But there are many scholarships that you can apply to again." And now, by this time, I was like an expert in scholarships. I have had like so many. I was like, "Okay, just tell me where do I have to apply?"
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, because I applied to so many scholarships that it was not a big deal for me. So, University of Montreal every year has a recruitment scholarship for new PhD students, in which they would pay them a year full of stipend, like a year amount of stipend, which is like 10,000, 15,000, and then the supervisor would like add to it.
Mhm.
But I was lucky because this year University of Montreal completes its 100 years, right? And
Mm.
because it completes its 100 year, they wanted to award one student with an excellence scholarship, which is the Sontharium scholarship, which would mean that they would pay that student a amount of 21,000.
Okay, and let me guess who got that. You got,
Yeah, I got that scholarship.
you got that. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that scholarship was very prestigious. I mean, everybody was congratulating me, and they were like, okay, because University of Montreal completed 100 years and they gave you this scholarship. I was like, okay, this is something new. I mean, nobody has ever treated me like this for getting a scholarship, honestly. And that's when I decided to actually stay and use this in my CV because I really want to get into academia in the future. And I feel like these things actually add a value to your CV. So that was
Yeah.
the latest scholarship that I have. I might get another one which is not yet confirmed, so I won't speak a lot about it. But there is another one that I could get soon.
You'll get it. You'll get it for sure. I believe in you.
I hope so. Fingers crossed. Honestly, just fingers crossed because this is a very competitive scholarship.
Okay. I wish you good luck for that then.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. So you said that when you were doing your Erasmus Mundus, that was like 4 semesters, 4 different countries, and then for the final research, you came to Canada because it was like
Yeah,
uh, conjointly doing it with Erasmus Mundus in with the University
exactly.
of Montreal. So
Exactly.
you are right now done with your Erasmus Mundus, like fully done with
Yeah,
that,
I am.
and then
Yeah,
after that, you
yeah,
got into the other scholarship
yeah, the PhD. Exactly. So I completed my Erasmus Mundus degree in September. And
this
in
year. Okay.
September, yeah, this year, September is when I was awarded the other scholarship, and
Mm-hmm.
September is when I started my PhD. So I'm completely done with the Erasmus Mundus scholarship part. And unfortunately, because I was not in Europe, I was not able to attend my graduation in person. But I'll be going to Europe soon next year, which would
Mm-hmm.
mean that I could go there and meet everyone in person. And I'm very excited for that.
So, Priya, I want to take you back to the time when you first time, moved out of your house. You moved in
Yeah.
2019 to France.
Yeah.
Tell me about your first month. How
Okay.
were you feeling, or what was going on in your mind back then when you moved for the first time?
Oh my God. I remember I was so anxious before moving. I was like, why am I doing this? Can you just back up? I don't want to go now. I mean, I was honestly really stressed. I remember
Mhm.
I was in the airport and my dad was like carrying my luggage till the gate. And I was just holding him and crying. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. He was like, no, just trust God. Everything will be okay. Go. So, luckily enough, I was traveling with another Indian. So, there was this girl that I met. I'm not going to name her. So, I met this girl and she was like, okay, let's travel together. So, my
Mhm.
dad, he recharged my phone. He was like, okay, when you go to France, at least you'll have enough balance to like call India and
Mm.
like talk to us and let us know how you are.
Yeah.
But this girl did not get anything, okay? And I remember my first day in Paris, we landed in Paris. And I was
Mhm.
like, this is it? Are we in Paris now? I was a bit happy, but also like, everybody is like, ah, shit, now we made it. Yahan aa gaye hum. So,
Yeah.
but this girl who was with me, she started crying.
Oh
So I was
man.
like, oh no, I don't even have time to like process my emotion right now because I have to take care of this other person, right? And I was in Dijon, which is like 3 hours from Paris. And my dad wanted me to have this safety window, like so that I don't miss the train and everything. So I
Yeah.
reached Paris at like 11 a.m. and my
Mhm.
train to Dijon was at 9 p.m. at night.
Okay.
So I had this whole day.
Hmm.
So I didn't know, and I had to take my train from Gare de Lyon, which is the same station where they have shot like Mr. Bean, if you have seen Mr. Bean
Okay.
Holidays, the same station. So we went outside the airport, and I told this cab driver to take us there. First of
Mhm.
all, he didn't speak English. I was like, I
Oh
don't know how to
no.
communicate to this man anymore. I was so stressed. I was trying to like explain it to him. I was like, Gare de Lyon. And he was like, Gare de Lyon. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then he understood and he took us there. I remember people were so rude. at the station, everybody was like staring at us because we were like so lost and confused with our big bags and everything. And it was almost 12:30 by that time when we reached Paris. So we were sitting in the station, everything was okay. My friend was like constantly crying and because she was homesick and she wanted to talk to her family. I gave her my phone to talk to her parents and everything, but the whole time she refused to eat anything. She was like, I'm not eating anything. I just want to go
Oh.
home. I don't like it here. I want to go home. So I went to the subway and I was like, okay, I'll just get a sub. I went there, and again, the woman was like, what do you want? It's like, I mean, it was a Russian woman. And everything is like so overwhelming to me. I've never heard so many accents in my life. And Paris is like really
Mm.
multicultural. So I remember after that, when I reached Dijon, I was so tired, so dead. I didn't get my Wi Fi for the first night. So I had
Mhm.
to sleep without the Wi Fi in my room. I had
Mhm.
nothing to eat. I only had like that one subway throughout the day. The next day, things started to settle in. There were like some people who came to help me. But I remember being so lost for the first month because everything was in French and I didn't speak any French. Nobody
Mm.
spoke English. I didn't speak any French. So the whole month I was like confused, going from here and there, trying to figure things out. I didn't even know how to cook back then. मतलब I
Hmm.
can also like yeah मैं पानी जला सकती थी at that time. I didn't know anything. I mean, like I didn't even know how to boil eggs. Like what's the procedure to do everything. But slowly I started learning and everything started getting in place. Like then the lockdown happened and I learned to cook really well. But my
Hmm.
first month was so overwhelming. I was really stressed and the language changed, the culture shock.
Hmm.
It's very different than Canada because everybody at least speaks your language.
Hmm.
There, it's like you don't even understand what people are talking to you. You know, you have to open a bank account. I went to bank, nobody spoke English there.
Oh
And I
man.
was so lost, like I didn't know how to communicate. I went to the police station for verification, nobody spoke English. The whole time I was like just lost, going from here and there. But I finally managed everything. It was very overwhelming, but I actually learned how to use Google Translator. I learned a few French words, and yeah, it made me like really strong. I mean, I remember like first 2 weeks I would cry every night, but after that I was like, you know what? It's your fight, it's your battle. You chose this for yourself, and now you have to do it.
Yeah, so that's what it is, right? We have decided, we have made up our mind, and we really wanted to do this, and we have come here. But just for your
Exactly.
friend, the Indian friend who was with you, I also don't blame her, crying and feeling that
I
way,
know,
because
understand. Yeah.
the whole process of preparing and coming, figuring out your visas and then your money and your
Yeah.
loans, you have
Yeah.
no time to process anything at all pre, and then you finally
That's
come
true.
here,
Yeah.
and then you were like, okay, so this is what I have signed up for, and I have to
Yeah.
deal with all now.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you like have no family or no support and you have to do everything on your own, especially like us in India, we are really like, or we're always surrounded by people.
Yeah,
You
we are
know,
pampered.
yeah, we are so pampered. I didn't know anything after coming to France. I had to learn how to use the laundry. Like I never did that. My mom would always do the laundry, at house, and I was like, okay. I had so much of appreciation for my mom, and I remember that in France there was like one time when the COVID wave happened of 2020. My dad was admitted in the hospital. He was in the ICU,
Hmm.
and I couldn't go back to India. I was in France, and it was so tough because I was always like constantly thinking about him. It was during that time my friends decided to take me to Budapest for my birthday, and the
Hmm.
same day my dad got admitted to the hospital. So the whole, I mean, I couldn't even go out. I was just staying in
Hmm.
the hotel the whole day, trying to talk to my mom, my dad, my sister, to calm them down and everything. And it was also like I finished my IFL scholarship and I was moving to Italy, but I did not have money with me because the scholarship is like for the limited amount of time. I didn't
Hmm.
have any money, and my dad was in this condition, so I couldn't even ask money from them. That's when I decided to do something that I've never done in my life. I decided to work in a vineyard, and
Okay.
If you might have seen like grape vines, they are like the same size as, they come to my shoulder. And
Okay.
my job was to pluck grapes. And it was
Hmm.
during summer in France, and I had to like do this job in which they have like this huge cake of grapes, and I had to like just cut the grapes every day. I would come home with like cuts, and I was bleeding everywhere. I couldn't even tell my parents that I was going through this all of that trouble, and I had so much of respect for people who actually work in farms or like do these menial jobs in
Hmm.
India, because they're so tough. I had no idea about that. But it did help me in getting the money to go to Italy. It was not easy. I really wanted to like give up and go back home. But I think it was very important that I stayed and I did that. I remember like I would come back home and I had like nobody to like cook for me, and like give me food or anything. So in that,
Hmm.
like with that state, I had to make myself something and prepare. So I would be leaving at 5 a.m. from my house and I would come back at 9 p.m.
Hmm.
So I had like no time to sleep or rest or process the whole day. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
challenging. Living in France was very tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that's sort of the life we all end up getting into, being an international
Yeah.
student or being an immigrant. That so many
True.
things that you come across, that just to make ends meet, you end up doing all
Of
sort of
course.
odd jobs, just to
That's
survive.
true.
And that can be
Yeah.
challenging, and it kind of also takes you away from the actual goal that you come for. Like for
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
for instance, I came for to excel in my industry, advertising.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I actually got into advertising literally 3 years later. For the first
I
3 years, I was
understand.
just working here and there just to make ends meet and figuring
No,
out
I
your
understand.
permanent residency
Yeah.
and then various other things. And yeah, and I think you were talking about, your father not being well and you feeling that sad and everything. I think on top of that, I have felt that, whenever any sort of such hard times have come across upon me, and I think I have felt that guilt that why did I move here? Why am I not with my family? Did you also feel like that?
A lot, honestly, a lot, especially during that time when I was in Budapest, because and I didn't know that this would happen to my father, right? So,
Of
and my
course.
friends were like, let's go, let's go. Yeah, and I planned this trip. I was in the middle of the trip, and the whole time I was feeling so guilty. I was so upset.
Hmm.
And also, like, I had like a few relatives who would comment on this. They were like, my mom told me to like not upload any pictures, which of course I was not gonna do, but she was like, it's really not a good gesture. I always felt so guilty because I missed so many marriages. I missed so many deaths. I mean, especially during COVID, I guess we all lost so many people,
Yeah,
and
unfortunately,
we were
yeah.
here. Yeah, we weren't there with our family when they needed us the most.
Yeah.
So that kind of like hurts me. And almost every day when I'm asleep, because of the time difference, I'm like, I have to like remain near my phone because I don't want to miss anything. I remember like once I was getting this call from my mom and I was in a lecture and I couldn't take it.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I texted her that I will call you later. And she was like, no, I have to talk to you now. So I did
Mhm.
receive the call, and I found out that someone who was really close to me is
Mhm.
no more. And it kind of like just shook me. I was like, no, I was avoiding the call, and that hit me really hard that anything could happen when we are here. Sometimes
Yeah.
I really feel that this is the price that we pay for the life that we're living
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
This constant sense of,
Guilt.
being afraid, just yeah, guilt
Yeah.
and fright and all of that. But it's very normal, and it's not just us. Like I had a friend who had to leave her husband, and she was living here, and she was like constantly missing because her husband was like building their house, and
Mhm.
she had to actually like just see everything from phone. She was so guilty the whole time. So
Hmm.
it's very normal. I've met so many people who experience that.
So let's just lighten up the mood, and I'm gonna ask you. Tell me, how did you get interested into reading Haruki Murakami? Tell me about that.
Oh, That's very weird that you found that out.
Of
Oh
course,
my
I have
god.
good sources.
Oh wow. Uh, I was actually really a literature buff. I would read a lot of books. In my college in India, I was also a part of the literary society. I was the student coordinator for them.
Okay.
And I think it was during that time when people would like talk about the books and everything, is when I read Kafka on the Shore, and I was like, it really touched me. It was something that, I really connected to that character, and that brought me so close to literature. Another personal thing is that my grandfather was really into books, and he had a library in Tatanagar, Jamshedpur.
Okay.
So he had this whole library from his book collection that he had to donate to build this library, because we
Hmm.
were moving and he had so many books. So growing up, he would always like get me something or the other to read. And he saw me reading Murakami when I was 17. And
Mhm.
he was like, don't read it now. Wait till you're 18 because you won't understand Murakami, or like at least wait till you're adult.
Okay.
So it has been so long since I've been like, I read a new book. But honestly, Haruki Murakami is someone who really inspires me. All his stories are so touching. They have a deep message, and I really find myself in the character. I'm also like someone with a lot of attachment issues with people. I
Mhm,
get really
mhm.
attached very easily, and his books actually reflect that and the struggles that he goes through. So I think that
Mhm.
that's how I got into it. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
so surprised that you found that out.
Of course, I read that somewhere, and I wanted to ask you, how was your, because when I
Yeah.
was just researching about that, and I saw that
Yeah.
it's not something everyone's. It's not like a go-to book for everybody. It's not everyone's
Yeah,
cup
true.
of tea, so to say. So I just thought of
True.
asking
True.
you because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my philosophy of life really matches with Haruki Murakami, and that's how I really like it.
Tell me more about
Yeah.
that.
I actually believe in letting go a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
that has helped me so much in traveling, especially
Mm-hmm.
during my Erasmus Mundus days. I would be in one country and say after 6 months I had to move. I have to take my whole life
Mm-hmm.
with me and move to a new place. I remember
Mm-hmm.
like when I first moved to France, I was so excited. I had my own money for the first time, and I was actually like living on my own terms, right? So
Yeah.
I started buying so many things. I had like I decorated my whole room.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to move to Italy, and I had to throw all of that away.
Hmm.
So and same with like people. I met so many friends, but then I had to leave them and move to a new country, and again to a new country, and again to a new country, and finally to this place. So
Mm-hmm.
letting go is something that I really believe in life, that it's okay. You live in the present, you make memories now, but you have to let go of the past to enjoy the present. If I always like keep thinking of the people that I met in Europe, I would never be able to like form connections with people again. So
Hmm.
I do believe in letting go, and I think Haruki Murakami's book is also mostly about letting go and moving on in your life. So that's why I think it matches with my philosophy a lot.
Awesome. I remember you were telling me when I met you for the first time, you were telling me that I move
Yeah,
every 6 months, and I'm like, I don't
yeah.
think so. I can do that, and carrying all that luggage and everything,
No, it's so
like
tough.
my one full
Yeah,
suitcase is just my turbans. How can I just leave my
yeah.
turbans behind? I cannot leave those.
No, of course, it's so bad because I remember like when I first moved to France, my mom gave me like these pictures, like family pictures,
Mhm.
to keep with me, and I don't have them with me now. I don't even know where I left them, honestly. And it kind of like hurts me, but then kind of letting go. But we have to move on. So yeah, it's really tough. And now that I'm here, I still somehow crave that traveling, and I still somehow
Hmm.
crave that adventure. And I'm soon gonna start the adventure again, but not this year. I'll take my time to settle in a bit.
So now, Pri, you are very active on social media as well, and you know that the posts that people post, they always talk about their achievements, which is
Yeah,
great. More power
yeah,
to them. But the
Yeah,
thing that connects more with people is behind the scenes, the flaws, or
true,
maybe even the
true.
struggles, and
Yeah,
you are never shy about posting about your flaws online. So
yeah.
would you say that's why people connect more with your content?
I think so because I know people are always like, oh wow, you have such a good life. You're living in Europe, you're living in Canada, you meet so many people, you're always traveling. But they don't know what goes behind it. Like I know
Hmm.
I know the amount of struggle and the hard work that I put into it. So I'm never
Hmm.
shy talking about that because even when I was trying to like go out of India,
Hmm.
everybody would like tell me about the positives of living outside of India, and they would always like kind of be like, oh, superior, that
Yeah.
okay, I live in US, so I'm like superior to you guys living in India. They always have this feeling. And
Hmm.
when I moved to France, I tried so much to like be that person, but it did
Hmm.
not happen. I feel like it made me, if anything, it made me a bit more humane and it made me a bit more understanding. It
Hmm.
instilled humility to me. So when I see, like, I get a lot of message from these young students who are like 20, 21 years old in India who are like, hi Didi, I'm so lost. I don't know. How did you do this? I always take my time, no matter how busy I am. I take
Hmm.
my time, I sit and I reply to them because I know what it feels like, what it feels
Hmm.
like to be lost. I remember my days when I had no one to help me with applications and I was overwhelmed with documents and understanding these things.
Hmm.
These the small reply that you get from someone,
Of
people
course.
see that okay, if she can do it, I can do it as well, because I was never
Hmm.
a very special kid. I was never someone who gets like the first rank in class or straight a kind of student. I was always very average. Even in my
Hmm.
university in India, I was not the gold medalist.
Hmm.
I was not like the top of my class anytime. But then people look at me and they're like, okay, this is an average person from a very average middle class family in India with average grades, with everything average. And if she's able to like make a life for herself, maybe we can do it. And I think
Hmm.
my videos which talk about my struggles get the most views. And I've
I can
always
imagine.
noticed
Yeah.
that, yeah. And I never shy away from it, honestly. And this is the reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is so much that goes behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Yes, things are changing. People do post their authentic self
yeah,
online, but still, it's just like a very fabricated image that is
that's true.
shown to the world. And
That's
and I'm
true.
so glad that you really show all the whole process. I even see some
Yeah,
videos you're having the tough days in your research, during your that
yeah,
PhD. So it's nice to see that the one goes through all kinds of ups and downs. It's not every
yeah,
not it's not all roses. One has to
that's
go
true.
through the ups and downs of your life. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, honestly, because a lot of people are like, how did you get the PhD position? Like, what did you do? And I'm always like, what's your end goal? And like, I want to get a PhD position. I'm
Mm.
like, it's not a fairy tale, like once upon a time and happy ending, the end. You get the
Yeah.
PhD over. No, it's not that. Even in your PhD, you have so many things. Like, life is all about struggles, and you need to know that. You need to know there are days when I have to sleep in my lab. There are
Mm.
days when it has happened with me when I was in Europe that I had to sleep in my lab. Even here, I had to go at like 6 a.m. or come back really late from lab. It's
Mm.
not easy. Like, I remember like once I was doing this experiment and everything failed because I did not add like 1 milligram of something.
Yeah.
So I had to like repeat the whole thing the next day. So it's not very easy. Like, you have your ups and downs, you have your days where you feel very lost, and I feel like sharing that really helps. It
Mm.
helps me. It helps me in, yeah. It helps others as well, knowing that okay, people who you think are happy and who are living their lives actually go through this. I mean, you have not seen me when I was in Europe, when I used to
Mhm.
like travel a lot there. So because I was a budget student, I would always take this flight called Ryanair. And
Mhm.
the like Ryanair flight, anybody who's lived in Europe knows that it's horrible. It's horrible because I would reach at an airport say at 10 p.m. and the next
Mhm.
flight is at 4 a.m. So I have
Mm.
this whole window where I have to sleep in the airport. And the Ryanair airports are usually like super far from main cities,
Mhm.
and you cannot even go out during that time. So I've even posted like stories of me, like, and me and my friends, we were sleeping on the floor and like how we are like talking to homeless people and stuff like that. And then people would be like, damn, that is what traveling is like. I'm like, yeah, it's not that I'm like traveling to a new country every week that I'm very rich or something. You have to plan things out. It's not that easy. Yeah, honestly, it's kind of fun as well. I mean,
Hmm.
if I was in India and I would be seeing someone who is like living there and talking about that struggles, I will like, okay, so I have to be prepared for this. This can also happen with me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it actually helps me in connecting more with people.
Yeah, 100%. I can see that the responses that you get
Yeah,
from people, they are really liking the whole journey that you are showing to them. So yeah, perfect. More part to you.
thank you so much.
So now, Pri, there were like, certain quotes or topics that I saw you posted on your profile. I want to talk about those because I think that can really help the international students, living away from their loved ones, anybody who want to really, move abroad so that, they can just learn from these things because they have to really tackle a lot of emotions when they move abroad, right? So the
That's
first
true.
thing, I saw you said that, France chose me. I did not choose France. What do you mean
Yeah.
by
So people always tell me like, why did you go to France, especially like in India?
that? Mm-hmm.
It's not a trend to like go to France. People always go to Canada, UK, US,
Mm-hmm.
Australia, maybe. But and when I was going to France, everybody was like, why did you decide to do this? And I always say that I did not choose France. France chose me. The
Mm-hmm.
reason why I was able to leave my home and move out of India was because I got the scholarship in France. If it was not for that, I would be never able to travel or make these new friends, meet these new exciting people.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful that I selected France. I feel like also because of the language barrier
Mm-hmm.
and because the culture being so different from any other country,
Mm-hmm.
it also taught me a lot about resilience. The
Mm.
experiences that I had, it taught me how to remain strong. There would be days when I had like nobody to talk to because of COVID. I was alone, and it did teach me that it's okay that sometimes you're alone. You have to enjoy your own company. You can't just keep looking for people. So this is something that I always tell everyone, that don't be afraid. If you get this chance, take it. Any opportunity that you get, take it. You might have challenges, but one thing that you have to know is that you'll have challenges everywhere. You have to accept them. You have to fight them accordingly. So something that I always believe in, and I feel like France is the reason why I learned all of that. So I
Mm-hmm.
always say that I did not choose France. France chose me. That was my destiny. That is what has made me the person that I am today.
Hmm.
Honestly.
Amazing. So that take me to the second point, which was confront your thoughts. And I think I can also just add to this one that I think back in India, when I'm feeling low, or if there's some sort
Yeah,
of confusion I am in, I have a lot of distractions. I can go sit with my parents.
true,
I can call a friend. I can just
true.
reach out to them. I can just go out. But here, when you are in abroad, and I remember I just moved to a different city. I
Mm-hmm.
moved to Halifax for some time, and I
Yeah,
it was like my very first week, and I was just struggling with my PR and everything. I was so lost. I had so many questions to ask myself, and then I was just forced to talk to myself and really, introspect and really talk about the things I really want to do.
yeah.
So you tell me about your interpretation of this that confront your thoughts.
Honestly, I totally agree with you, and I think I had this conversation with you once.
Mm-hmm.
I was the person who would always like run away from the thoughts. I would never sit down and accept them. I would never
Mm-hmm.
accept that okay, this has happened. No, I mean I remember when my grandma died. I was really close to her, but I was not ready to like accept the fact. And I have done
Mm.
that all through my life, in my relationships as well. Like whenever they would fail, I would never sit and think why that happened or like ask myself questions. When I was alone for so long, I think during France as well, like when I
Mm-hmm.
was locked down, when I had the lockdown and I was alone, is actually when I started like really talking to myself and understanding my feelings,
Mm.
understanding why I felt this. I kind of became my own therapist. I started like talking to myself, understanding my own thoughts and why am
Yeah.
I behaving in this way. And that really helped me. It made me a bit more open. I realized that one of the main issues that I was facing is because I was not as accepting to other people and other cultures that then I mean not as accepting as I thought I was,
Hmm.
honestly. So one thing that I started doing was getting to know more people, trying
Hmm.
to go out, even if I don't want to. There have been days when I'm super lazy, but then I'm like, no, I have to get out of my bed. I have to go to this party. I have to go
Yeah.
and meet people. This is something that has really helped me. And because of those things that I learned in France, I was a much better version of myself in Italy and Spain,
Hmm.
because then I would actually go out, learn about other cultures. I met this amazing friend who was from Montenegro, who was marrying this guy who was half Kenyan and half Swiss. And I got to know about their culture, their traditions, and everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm so much more open to like new people. And all of that happened because I confronted my thought. I realized why am I feeling so lonely. I found the root cause was because I was like only being stuck to the people who were like me, and I decided to change it. And I often do it even now, especially now that I'm a PhD student. I have a lot of problems in lab. Like I have to deal with a lot of issues. I have to find my own way, right?
Hmm.
And what I do every morning before I start my work is I sit with my journal for half an hour and I plan my day. Okay, this is what I
Hmm.
have to do. This is what I'm feeling. Okay, this is
Hmm.
how I can get it. Everything. I try to like channel all my energy towards that half an hour of my day, and I
Hmm.
start. So I think it's very important for everyone to actually sit and confront themselves, to confront your thoughts, plan your plan your work, plan your day. Have an action plan, honestly, and it will only happen when you're honest with yourself and talk to yourself about it.
Yeah, I think Pri, you have articulated it like perfectly, and I really hope people
Yeah,
really take that advice and work on that.
yeah.
Perfect, love that. The other one, was the poem that you wrote in one of your posts, which was called "To My Broken Self, I See You." Where you talked about stop focusing on what you used to be. Talk a little more about that.
So when I moved to Canada first, I created like a family for myself in Europe,
Hmm.
and I had a family in India, and now I have a family in Europe. And in
Hmm.
Europe, it's like really not difficult to travel from one country to another. If I'm in France, I only have to take 1 hour of flight to go to Italy or something like that. So I had friends all over Europe, but and it was not very difficult for me to meet them every weekend or something.
Hmm.
So when I first moved here, I kind of missed my old self. I missed how outgoing I was. I missed my old family. I missed those people that I knew.
Hmm.
I was like, I'll never be able to find the same people. I'll never be able to, build a life for myself again here. So I felt really broken and really alone in my first days, and I did like a mistake of living alone for the first months in Canada. I moved into a place alone, and that kind of made me so depressed. I was always like lost in my thoughts. I would always think like, oh my god, I was so much fun last year at this time I was doing this, 2 years ago I was doing this. Like I had so many friends, I was at this person's house, I was making this food for them, and now I have like no one to talk to. But then I kind of realized that I'm not the same person anymore,
Hmm.
because I have more experience now. I have seen more things now. I'm more experienced than the woman I was a year ago, right? I'm not the
Hmm.
same person anymore. So
Yeah.
it's kind of important to let go of your past and to understand that we are all growing and this is a part of the process. Especially, I guess,
Hmm.
when you turn 25, I guess everyone will be hit by quarter life crisis or has experienced that quarter
Yeah.
life crisis. And it's important to understand that it's normal, it's natural, it happens. You cannot always dwell in the past and think that okay, my life was so much better when I was 18, but you did not even have the things that you have now when you were 18, right? So there's something
Yeah.
that I always try to tell myself and I confront myself, that it's okay, things happen, you are entitled to feel the things that you're feeling. And that's why I'm like, to my broken self, I see you. I know what you're going through, but you cannot live there.
Yeah,
You have to move
I
on.
absolutely love that, Pri. We do have the tendency of, dwelling so much in our
Yeah,
past. Oh, I had this, I had that thing. I think even the people who come to Canada, they always talk about, back in India, I had this house, I had that car, I had my mother preparing meals for me. Then
always.
again, the
Yeah,
question comes that why did you choose to come? Because you want to grow in your life, you want to
exactly.
really achieve something in your
Exactly.
career. That was the whole reason of coming.
Yeah,
So you cannot dwell in the past. And again, the words of Murakami, that just let it go and just live in your
yeah,
present and build your future. That's what the whole point is. Yeah.
exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly. That's the most important thing. And also, I guess, like, when you break from your past self, it also brings
Hmm.
you a lot of humility, and it brings you
Hmm.
really grounded. It makes you more human.
You
You
start
don't have that
valuing the
ego
things you
anymore.
never valued before. You start loving the things you never
Exactly.
loved before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the first step to be successful. Every successful person that you see is so humble. And I'm not just talking about successful in the wealth wise, in any aspect of their life. So that's why I feel it's very important to grow and to understand that growth is a part of the process.
Okay, Pri, so now we are in the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a sentence. The idea is just to know more about you.
Okay.
So, first is, what advice would you like to give to Pri, who is in the initial months of landing in Canada?
Uh, First thing would be, please don't be afraid. Go out, make new friends, actually talk to people. Just go out, be you.
Okay. So, what's something that you miss the most about Delhi?
Food, definitely food. Like nothing beats the food there.
So, what's the worst advice someone ever gave you, if any?
Oh my god, the worst advice that I've ever received is, you're a girl, you should learn how to cook first, and then everything will come later. But first is cooking. You should at least learn that. Oh my god, I was like, really?
I think that was less of an advice and more of a patriarchal comment.
Yeah, more of an attack. Yeah.
So, Pri, if you can ask one question to anybody living or dead, the person could be somebody you admire or you are a fan of, what would you ask?
I would honestly try to talk to the people who have worked with CRISPR-Cas9. I'm a scientist, so all my thinking is like related to science. I'm so fascinated by gene editing. I don't feel like know about CRISPR-Cas9. It's a gene editing tool, and I would
Mhm.
really want to know what was their vision when they created it and when they discovered it, and how do they think they could change the field of medical science and how they could actually help others, because something that has always intrigued me and nobody really knows because it can be used in so many ways.
Okay. Name three things from your bucket list.
Oh wow. I I have to visit Turkey. It's something that I've always dreamt of. I
Okay.
really dream of having my own cafe someday. It's so bizarre,
Mm.
but I really want to own my own cafe. And
Mm.
my third bucket list thing would be to make my parents travel. And I want to
Mm.
experience everything that I've experienced before with my parents, honestly. I would be so
Okay.
happy if I'm able to do that.
So, in which country did you enjoy the most living in, other than India?
Ah, Spain. Spain is so good. I was in Spain with the S. Like people always make this meme, I'm Spain without the S. But I was in Spain with the S. I actually enjoyed so much there.
Okay. So, if
Yeah.
you had to describe yourself, as an animal, what would it
Mhm.
be and why?
I think you would agree to this, and I would say rabbit, because I'm never really like focused at one place. You have like seen me, right? I'm always like running from here and there. Even my thoughts, like they're like I'm talking about one thing and I
Mm.
suddenly switch to another thing, and you know that more than me.
Okay. So, if you could eat one dish or food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh man, I love chole bhature. I can eat it for
Mm.
breakfast, lunch, dinner, any time of the day. I love it so much.
I remember you ordering it for dinner once. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone is like, why do you eat chole bhature for dinner? I'm like, I can't help it. I love it so much. I can eat it anytime.
Okay. So, what did you recently buy that you now regret?
I I guess the most recent thing that I bought that I really regret is my tablet, because I honestly, like, after buying it, it kind of broke. So I had to like get back to my old tablet which I had from India. So I'm like, why did
Hmm.
I even waste my money on that thing? Yeah, it broke, honestly. I didn't even buy the Apple Care, and they were like, we can't repair it. Like, you have to pay like $300 for the repair. I was like, no, I'm done.
That's the worst feeling. I had the
It
similar with my
is.
AirPods. It's the worst feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what's your favorite movie to watch over and over again?
I really love A Beautiful Mind.
Hmm.
It inspires me so much. And Pursuit of Happiness. I think whenever I'm down, I watch these
Yeah.
two movies. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Pursuit of Happiness is even one of my favorites. I absolutely love that
Yeah.
movie.
It's so
Okay.
inspiring. Love it.
Next is Pri, what is the most important quality you think you have that will take you where you want to go?
I think my humility, it's
Hmm.
because I never let any success get on my head. I'm always really
Mm.
grounded, and I always treat everyone with respect, like most respect that I could give. Yeah.
So, finally, describe Canada in one word or a sentence.
Ever growing. Canada is everything that you can imagine it is. It is a
Hmm.
mix of every place that I've lived in. I see the
Mm.
elements from India, I see the elements from France, I see the elements from Italy, Spain, every country that I've lived in, I can find it here. It's actually a very warm, very contrary to the winter, it's a very warm place when it comes to welcoming people. Yeah.
I love that analogy. Love that.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, on that note, Pri, those are all my questions. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And yes, to all our listeners, I will put the details to all the scholarships that Pri has done and her social media handles in the show notes. Please check those and feel free to reach out to her in case of any questions you might have, any guidance you might need. She will be definitely ready to help you.
Thank you so much, Guru, for having me. I really enjoy talking to you. And thank you so much. If anybody has like any doubts about the scholarship, my DMs are always open for everyone.
Awesome. Hey, listener, thank you for making it to the end. I highly, highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.